Hey, what's going on, YouTubers? How are you? Hiker Dave NE here. I got a couple good little topics here I want to talk about. Before I do, I'd like to say hello to the Welker family. They're big fans of Hiker Dave, and it's appreciated. Jenny, Morgan, and Haley, thank you guys so much for watching. It's much appreciated. I want to get to this subject on where the heck Bigfoot is. And there's some pretty solid reasons, my theories, why it's so difficult to, when you're looking for Sasquatch to see one. So there's some stuff, and of course, written down again in my journal. And it just seems near impossible, right? And I think it has to do with the ability to read the sign that Sasquatch leaves behind. And I've said it before in my videos. A lot of times I've said this. How important I believe that the sign is that Sasquatch leave behind, whether it be for themselves, or from a form of communication from one to another clan, or one Sasquatch to another. And the ability to read this sign has to be studied. And I'm trying. Believe me, I'm trying. It's not for lack of trying. So, like, for instance, like a deer, right? And I use deer for as a example because a deer leaves behind sign. And a deer is hard to track and find. And if you're not feeding them or baiting them, it's difficult to sit, if you're a hunter. I'm not a hunter, but I could imagine the difficulties of sitting in a tree stand. And if you don't take the correct, use the correct methods used to attract them or hunt them, you won't see one, never mind get a shot off at one. And they leave behind sign. They leave behind tracks, their scat. I mean, we know what they look like, what the different animals waste that they leave behind. We can identify them. We know, for instance, with a deer, when they're in rut, we know you could set up a trail cam and you can see them on trail cam. We know what they eat, the sounds of antlers scraping against a tree or scraping against limbs, or even elk or something like that are kind of battling each other. We know that sound. So, the same can be said for a lot of woodland wild animals, squirrels, fox, bear, elk, etc. We know what these animals eat. We know their habits. We know what sign is left behind. We can follow tracks, we can track them and hunt them. And so when we go into the forest, we give away our presence, my opinion, before you even step on the leaves, before you even get on that trailhead, or before you enter the forest, you give away yourself. And I've had some texts from deer hunters explaining to me that, Dave, you're never going to see one if you're wearing, say I use scented soaps or hair or shampoo, or, what I wash my clothes in and stuff like this. And some hunters, will go through great lengths, as even putting their hunting clothes in a bag with dirt and leaves and twigs, and putting different scents on their boots, and they'll change their clothes when they get to their hunting area, and they go to these great lengths to hide themselves or to hide their scent and what they smell like. And I think that's a huge deal when it comes to Sasquatch, that they know we're there before we even ever get near them. How far and the lengths that we'll go to stay stealthy as soon as we step in the forest is amazing. Deer hunters really know their stuff. And I understand that. And these extreme methods, they work, right? And what that tells me, how advanced Sasquatch is, that they don't fall for that, for those types of tricks. And now, just as far as your scent goes, that's one thing. Sounds are another. That's a big deal. Wild animals, in the forest know the sounds. They know their surroundings so well, they can tell when your boot snaps a twig on the trail, right? In our everyday lives, right, in our environments, whether you live in the country or the suburbs of the city, you know the sounds, you know the different sounds, you know a train sound before, and you don't even have to see it. I can tell the difference between a police siren and an ambulance siren. You can tell the difference, and I don't even have to see it. I can tell the difference, a motorcycle, the difference between a motorcycle and a truck, for instance, and all without even seeing them. So when we go into the woods, the sounds to most of us when we go in the forest are foreign to us, but not to the creatures, the animals that live in the woods, and that's their habitat, and they know these sounds and these sights and these smells. You know, so when for instance, when I go into the forest, I spent a lot of time in the woods, especially the past few years, and I know what an owl sounds like. I know what a fox sounds like. I know what a coyote sounds like, and different things. I know the sounds a squirrel makes when it's in distress, or the squirrels like to set an alarm off as soon as they see you. Birds, they set an alarm off when they see you or hear you coming down a trail. And it can be tough because Bigfoot, I think, loves to mimic certain animals to throw us off, and that's part of possibly their communication. And I find it to be extremely important to know, the more you know about your surroundings when you go into the forest, and I know it's an obvious statement, but the more that you know about woodland creatures and the sounds they make and the sign that they leave behind, I think the better odds are of getting a little closer to Sasquatch. So I've been in. I'm not a hunter. I said that before, but I have come across deer. I have obviously I must have been upwind, and on multiple occasions I've just walked right up and turn a corner on a trail, and there's a deer standing right in front of me, 15, 20 feet from me. And it was distracted enough that it didn't hear me. And I was a little bit surprised and right off the bat a little bit afraid because all of a sudden it was just right in front of me. And, they are incredibly in tune to their surroundings, and yet they make a mistake. A deer, I'm speaking of, make that mistake that I've just come across them before. I've come across before with 2 or 3. Down in the gully, it happened a couple times that I thought there was a white plastic bag floating through the woods, and it was a white-tailed deer. And then just as I thought it was one, and then if the other 2 never moved, I never would have saw them, but they all ended up taking off. But so it's not a foolproof thing, So, all these senses that these animals use to stay hidden so we don't come across them, you've got to think, and this is in my opinion, Sasquatch is much more advanced in their ability to cloak their movement. Cloak, and I use that word kind of tentatively because Bigfoot's ability to stay hidden is just far surpasses any other animal in the forest, by far. And again, that's my opinion. I believe the sign, and yes, I'm going to go there, sapling breaks, stick breaks, tree leans, these kind of things is the key. That's my opinion, but I believe that is the key to getting us closer to understanding Sasquatch. Being able to decipher or decode these different signs, these signs could mean anything. I've said before about whether these signs, like I'm going to take sapling breaks as a for instance because I do a lot of studying on sapling breaks, the direction that they face, where they are just off of a trail or right next to a trail. I have followed these sapling breaks before, bushwhacking through the woods and follow the direction of each sapling break. And I was amazed to find that it took me from one, like a deer run. It took me from one deer run to another deer run to another deer run, which led me to kind of have a theory at that time that the sapling breaks were like directional markers for hunting. And, you know, not that the Sasquatch in the area don't know where the hunting grounds are, but I think that they would leave behind a little bit of a mapping system for future Sasquatch that come into the area that just makes it easier for them to navigate their way. I also noticed that these sapling breaks avoided foot trails, paths that people will follow. And it was almost like these sapling breaks were kind of a quick route as the crow flies type kind of thing, to staying off the trail as much as possible. There's no way that any creature, unless it's got wings, could avoid walking or hiking trails when in an area. So that's kind of my take on that. That, you know, I personally am not going to put my clothes in a plastic bag with dirt and leaves and twigs, because I'm not hunting deer and I'm not hunting Bigfoot either. It's, you know, if I ever see one, I think it's going to be the choice of that particular Sasquatch to let himself be seen. And that may never happen in my life ever. But I will say, you know, I'm not going to walk around like a ninja either through the woods, staying completely silent, because I don't want to come across a potentially dangerous wild animal either. So I don't really, and maybe I should concentrate more on stealthiness, but I don't. I don't want to run across or sneak up on accident on a bear or a group of coyote or just things like this that, you know, I'm not going to sit in a ghillie suit in a bush either for 6 or 7 hours and sit in the forest. So the method I use in my exploration or research of Sasquatch, I'm going to stick with it, because I don't mind if they know that I'm there. I don't need to sneak. I think they already know anyways. I think you could, with Sasquatch, I think you could bathe yourself in skunk and roll around in dirt and mud and, you know, stay out in the forest for a month rolling around in the dirt, and they're still going to know you're there, unlike a deer where you can fool a deer and things like that. And I just think that it's the sign. Decode the sign that is left behind by Sasquatch, and I think that gets us so much closer to just understanding. I don't need to throw a net over Bigfoot and capture it and bring it to, you know, wherever to prove that it's real. I know it's real. I have never seen one, but I'm pretty confident that they're out there. And so when I do see one, I think it'll be by the choice of the Sasquatch. Thank you guys so much for clicking. I really do appreciate it, and I'll definitely see you guys on the next one.